Check, check, check.
Check, check. Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out OTheAnthem.com. It's where you can find everything OThe Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/OThe Anthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Well, of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/OThe Anthem is the place for it all.
And of course you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Cheek.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at OThe Anthem on all your social networks.
swear to God, I had a Mandela effect moment today when Walter Mondale died. This is Corey, and this is the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 367 of the Anthem podcast. Once again, coming to you from the hashtag OTA LA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Good news, everybody. Pandemic's over. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for listening on your podcatcher of choice. The easiest way, anchor.fm/Oh the Anthem.
Now, of course, pandemic's not over, meaning we are in the studio, so the pandemic's over. Because we, like other responsible people, have a bubble. And we all stay in our bubble, and we're very responsible in our bubble. And when someone travels, we take some time off, and we get tested in between. But on my trip over here to celebrate your birthday, happy birthday, by the way. I don't think you said that last week, but happy birthday to Corey this past week. I rode down Sunset Boulevard, and apparently the pandemic's over. So
apparently.
We can get to that in a bit. But I guess where we should start out is the sad, hopeful, but upsetting. And it's that moment when the football's in the air and the clock hits 0, and you know that, like, whatever happens is about to happen, and it's out of your hands.
Yeah.
That's where we are in the Derek Chauvin trial.
Yes.
So we George Floyd, obviously everybody knows that story. Hopefully by now you know the story. Derek Chauvin, the police officer, former police officer, who is now on trial for his murder. That trial is concluded. And by that, I don't mean that it's completely over, but it's in the hands of the jury. The prosecutor, I did have an opportunity to watch the closing arguments for him. I thought it was, I think you put this well in our pre-show discussion that, like, we have to give some deference because we don't practice. I never practiced in Minnesota. I don't know the law there. Not necessarily the closing I would have given, but they have to do certain things that they have to do there. So
yeah,
it is what it is. I do think that he did what I don't see in a lot of big trials, and that's, here is the law, and here are the 4 points you have to find if you want to find him guilty on this charge. Now, point 1, is George Floyd the person who was murdered? I think we've covered that one.
Yeah.
Now, point 4, did this happen in Hennepin County, Minnesota? I think we've proven that. Now, let's look at points 2 and 3. This is what malice heart murder is. And This is what malice is. This is what malice heart is under the law. And this is who told you that these circumstances were present in the moment. And because of that, you must find him guilty. And let's go through all 4 charges. And then at the end, coming through and being like, now what you're going to hear from the defense is that being a police officer, he was allowed to take these actions. Now, here is the law on what police officers are allowed to do in reasonable force and what a reasonable officer can do. And here's what the police chief said. Here's what their experts said. Here's what their experts said.
Here's what 10 members of the police department said. Like,
yeah. And basically walking through. And so it's not exciting. And here's the thing. Unless you're watching Matlock or Law and Order, closings aren't exciting. It's you've been taking notes through this entire trial. Now take that notebook and throw it out because everything you need is going to be given to you right now. Here's the law. Here's who we said it. Here's what they said, and then here's what they said again.
Well, beyond that, the same could be said for opening statements too. Like it's not as flashy as you get on television or in movies or something like that.
Now I know you're a big fan of Raul Espinoza.
Esponza, yeah.
Yes,
of SVU, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And he gives some flashy closings.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, those were written for him by a writer.
Well, also, generally speaking, you don't see like people raising their voice in regular trials like this. Like,
if you were
it's usually it's pretty demure. Like, there's not like he did it. He's the one. The whole system's on. You know, like there's not a big moment like that. So I feel like anytime I check in on cable news or anything like that, though, they are giving you a piece of it, like more fireworks today.
Yes. Like, really? Was there fireworks?
Yeah.
I watched that. I didn't see it. But, I mean, so now it's in the hands of the jury. And there are, I think I outlined this for you in our pre-show talk, there are 3, let's call it 3 outcomes.
Yeah.
If they walk in the room and the door closes and everybody's like, so we agree he's guilty, right? Then usually you'll come back in a couple hours. The paperwork famously takes like an hour to fill out, sometimes 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll get like a 2 or 3 hour return. The attorneys will sometimes hang out for like an hour and then like look to the bailiff like, have they asked for the paperwork yet? Like, if not, okay, so it's going to be tomorrow, if nothing else.
Yeah.
That is infamously good for the state because you almost never get 12 acquittals. Acquittal is much more difficult than getting the guilty.
Yeah.
The next day, maybe the day after, is really good for the defense because it means that you walked in with 12 acquittals or maybe a 6-3, and somebody had to be convinced that they shouldn't find the person guilty. After that, I generally find that it gets more and more for the state, especially if they ask for evidence. And again, I realized after we discussed this, like, I don't know the law in Minnesota because not every state allows the jury to bring evidence into the jury room.
Yeah.
Some of them can ask questions and the judge can clarify.
Some of them get the record, right? As opposed
you can get
to
the transcript, of what was said rather than the video, or you can't see the actual report, but we can give you the transcript of what was testified to.
Right.
Which is also, by the way, why it can be boring but very thorough for you to go line by line through a report. Because if you only get the transcript, it's as if they had the report. So.
Well, because I seem to remember, I don't remember what case it was, but one of the many cases of police shooting an unarmed black man.
Yeah.
Where the video wasn't allowed into evidence because of some sort of evidentiary problem with the chain of custody of the video. And therefore they spoke of a video, but they never actually showed it. And like, there was a lot about like a transcript of what was on the video, but couldn't actually be entered into evidence or something like that. And I think we had a conversation about that where the state doesn't allow like the video evidence, like unless it was taken by an official source or something. Like there was some.
I want to say that was the one out of South Carolina, which actually this week got appealed, and the judge was like, "Nope, your lawyer was fine," because the guy ended up taking a plea deal during the trial or during the jury being out.
Yeah,
because that's one of those things too. Is now when you're a defendant, you start to get real nervous, like. Okay, so it's been 4 days, 5 days. They're not coming back. What happens is often, I think we've talked about this before, that the jury will be in there like, all right, so we can't get 12 for the top charge. Who's down for charge number 2?
Yeah.
All right, so we got 9 to 10. Okay, what do we have to do to get you two on board with charge 2 rather than the top charge? And you start negotiating in the room. And a lot of times that also involves bringing evidence in or discussion or whatever we can get into the jury room. And so if you're the defendant...
And like even like a show trial inside of the jury room, like...
Sometimes, sometimes it can be like, all right, so usually more when it's evenly split, when it's just like... because when it's...
Like a 6-6 kind of...
Yeah, it's somewhere around the middle. It's just like, all right, so we take sides and we basically put on a version of the trial where you argue your best points and you argue your best points, and then we'll figure out who's got a more engaging argument.
Yeah.
If it's more like, 9-3, a lot of times it's like, defend yourself. Tell us why you three think that we are wrong.
Yeah.
Also, why lawyers aren't typically allowed on juries. Because sometimes you'd be like, well, I'm a lawyer, and I know that the 9 of you agree, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, shit, maybe
we should all follow the lawyers.
Maybe we're wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he would know, right?
Yeah.
Like, or you don't tell anybody, and you're so good at arguing that you can convince people. And there's a movie with John... Runaway Jury, where basically he puts up the jury for sale to both the state and the defense because he can display why he has them under his control.
Yeah.
And he is able to, he's going to produce whatever verdict he wants to produce out of that. But sometimes when you have a jury that goes out for a really long period, like more than a week, as a defendant, you start getting the feeling like they're negotiating what charge I'm going to be found guilty of. So if I can negotiate with the state and get what I think is a better deal than whatever they're going to come out with, and we get that agreement on the record before they're done, then trial's done. And we've wasted all this time. Jury's out. Jury doesn't matter, essentially, at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened in that case in South Carolina. And then later on, now he had appealed it to say, like, I could have got a better shake with the jury than I got in this deal, and it's my lawyer's fault. And... No, he explained all of the things, and you rolled the dice that the jury was going to come out with something bad, and whether or not now you've interviewed all of them and you realize like they were going to give me 5 years.
I feel like looking back on a plea deal is always like a sorry about your luck kind of moment. Like you
never
you kind of made your bed. Like it's like the classic of like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where it's just like, I don't want to push it. I'm at 500,000 right now. I don't want to lose all this. I don't want to go home empty-handed, so I'm just going to walk with it.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, well, here's the $1 million question. What Oriole leads the team and wins? I'm like, no, why? I could have done that one.
I never want to know. Don't tell me what it was. If we're on Let's Make a Deal, it's like, I don't want to know what door, whether I had the right door or the wrong door. And again, some of that is the pressure of the moment. When you're facing 128 years total, you start making decisions that down the road you don't share the same mentality of. But also, you're not facing 128 years.
Yeah.
Now you're facing the 20 that you agreed to and the possibility that maybe they would have given you less.
Yeah.
And maybe you're right. But you don't have the pressure of 128 sitting over you. So it's like a whole different perspective.
Also, you're any good lawyer, and I'm sure Chauvin's lawyer is telling him this too, as he was fighting this whole case. Juries are unpredictable. You don't know what 12... Just randomly pick 12 people off your Facebook list and have them be the deciders of some sort of big issue, some sort of legal issue. If we did a random 12-name generator, I imagine there would be 4 or 5 names that end up on that list where you're just like, oh, God, I wouldn't want that person deciding whether or not, I'm free or innocent. It's just take an arbitrary selection of any 12 people in your life, and you're going to be like, well, a lot of them don't deserve to be on a jury, but they're on juries all the time. And you don't know whether or not they're capable of understanding the evidence and applying it, which is why good attorneys are worth a lot of money, because people who can make it easy for the jury to understand why this is a crime or why this person is innocent or why this is, a lot of people hate Chauvin's attorney, Nelson.
Yeah. That's good, though.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not supposed to be a good guy. No. So, he knows he was going to be the bad guy coming into this thing. And, he's got to do things. The number one goal is to zealously defend your client. That's the number one thing you're signing up for. So, if there is a path for you to get your client off, then you have the legal obligation to do everything you possibly can to get that determination.
Yeah.
All the conversation that was having about, George Floyd ingesting drugs right before he had the knee, that's what he's supposed to do. Yeah. That's the best path forward if you are Nelson in this case.
If most Americans liked him at the end of this, he did not do his job, because you need to find those corners to just duck in. Listen, we love Johnny Cochran.
Yeah.
I loved because he
was colorful.
Well, no, but he's dead now. So I was going to say was in the past, I guess. But the point of it is, if you're Nicole Brown Simpson's family, you hate him. Yeah. Because you're like, what are you bringing this confusion of, where's the blood here or there? That if you're in the courtroom every day, you see, testimony was very clear, but then you walk out there and you're telling the public stuff that's not true. I'm selectively telling the public what I want to tell them. Yeah. Okay, and we, the public, loved him, but by the way, he's just being a good lawyer. And most defense attorneys, you also, by the way, you liked OJ. That's why you liked Johnny Cochran. Well, you hate Derek Chauvin. So. And
people come in with such a binary sense of how a case should go based off of how they feel about what had happened. If it was just a straight, how badly do you feel for George Floyd and how responsible do you think this officer is? I imagine a lot of trials against police officers would go with officers facing some sort of penalty. Yeah. But the problem is, in these cases, in all cases, is that there's so many different moving pieces that involve whether or not somebody is culpable by the sense of the law, to the actions that they're accused of. And, you could say the Patriots and the Jaguars are going to play each other 12 times. How many times do the Patriots win? Well, there is
Brady Patriots or the
whatever.
Patriots?
There's a the Chiefs versus the Jaguars. They're going to play 12 times. How many times do you think the Chiefs are going to win? A lot of people would say 12 times for the Chiefs because they're so much better than the Jags. But there is a certain number there's a certain scenario in which the Jaguars could win. Yep. And there is just the same as you go into a trial. You don't know how it's going to play out. You might get some random fumble in the fourth quarter and you're able to return it for a touchdown, and now you won. And, it's Nelson is doing everything he possibly can to work for his client. Now, I think that he has a better the people in the room are going to be the people. Don't listen to talking heads. Yes. Follow what the lawyers in the room are doing. Nelson is not doing it seems like he feels like he's got a vote or two on the jury.
I think
like,
so.
He's been taking it all the way to the end. He hasn't been trying to do any dramatics for. There was the mistrial thing earlier today after the jury had already gone to the back.
Yeah.
For deliberations about Maxine Waters' comments, which, like, you know, I don't know, but I just feel like, you know, like he's been playing it like he feels like he's got a good enough case to potentially win this thing.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, it's either you think you have it and you got somebody who's going to find you in the end, or you definitely know you don't, and you're setting up your ineffective assistance of counsel appeal ahead of time.
By the way, the more zealous you are, the worse that looks. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm screaming in the courtroom, maybe it makes me look a little crazy, but it also looks like I am doing everything I can for my client. But if I'm just like, yeah, no, we're fine. No closing necessary. I'm good. Then it's just like, later on, they're like, what you didn't do a closing? Like, I was very confident that I had a couple people on that jury. I thought we had a good solid 11 votes, and I was just waiting for the 12. Like, okay, all right.
Nobody on CNN or MSNBC who is a lawyer who is breaking down this case, though, or Rob or anybody, is going to know this case as well as the lawyers in the room.
Yeah.
And they have experience in Minnesota courts, and they know what's going to go on. You know, like, no offense to any number of the great legal minds that I hear talking about this case on different channels and stuff like that. Some of them, you know, have real points that make you think a little bit more about this case in a way that is productive. Some people are just out there trying to bloviate because they're on television. And it's like,
you want to know the difference between a talking head and a commentator? The talking heads are the ones who are like, it is so clear that this is going to be he's going to be found guilty on all 3 counts. And then you have some who are like, listen, we have to wait to see what the jury says when they come back. Because those guys are the ones who are like, you never know. You know, these guys are sitting there listening intently, nodding with the prosecutor, and they get in that room and they're like, not guilty. I don't know how you could even think he was guilty, and you just don't know.
I also like that the people you see all the time are not working lawyers. I appreciate when they would just like, we were able to snag 5 minutes with famous attorney here. Like, it used to be Dershowitz all the time back before his shine went away.
Yeah, before the Epstein came down.
But it would just be like, we were able to snag 5 minutes of Dershowitz's time to comment on this case. The other part that I think is we're probably, I would imagine, having a verdict by the time we podcast next.
Yeah.
Like a week's time would probably be.
I said, if I'm in the jury room, even if we got a 12-0 on the first vote,
I'd
be like, listen, I got kids in this school district. Let's just hold out till Friday. We're being sequestered. The hotel's nice. Like, let's just take a little vacation. Let the kids have their school week. Because this is the problem.
Well, I mean, there's lesser charges, too, that you could probably squabble over.
Yeah,
like,
true. Yeah, listen, I only think he's guilty of the top charge. Well, that means you think he's guilty of the lesser charges. No.
I mean, I don't think if he was necessarily out of line. I think it was murder, but I think he did good policing.
But in the end, I think that, like, this is the kind of situation where if they acquit him, the city's going to fucking burn down.
Yeah.
But there is also a chance that in the celebration for his conviction, the city also burns down. Because I have a feeling that in the celebration for his conviction, the police will be aggressive and overly so towards those people and then cause a riot, which will lead to an exchange between the police and
I find that hard to believe. I don't see any evidence of police completely overreacting to every little perceived slight.
And I certainly don't see just thousands of people with cans of soup on their way home to their families hanging out in the street. So, you know.
Damn, Donald, why'd you give everyone the idea?
Just that whole interview.
Yeah.
I don't know who is that kid? Is he famous for something, or is he just a kid that they grabbed off the street?
Who?
Oh, you don't even know about that?
No.
Oh my God. Okay, so they interviewed this kid at the Dante Wright protest. And the woman walks up to him and she's like, "Why do you have a can of soup?" And he's like, "Oh, I was just on my way home to my family to bring them this delicious soup, and I saw a crowd gather. So I said, I'll go see what this crowd's about. And I just happened to be holding this can of soup I was going to take home to my family." And the woman's just like, "Really?" And he's like, Yeah, it's delicious soup for my family. And I'm like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Good
Well,
for you.
that was because Trump, like, God, fucking who knows when, at some point when talking about police protests,
Yeah.
was just like, these protesters are showing up with cans of soup. And, you know, if you hurl a can of soup in some police officer's face, it hurts like a brick. And then, like,
Oh, well, good.
there was like a whole day of Twitter just going like, hey, if you don't want police officers to get assaulted by things, maybe not give them examples of things that you can legally carry around and throw at them that would hurt them. Like,
I had never thought about carrying cans of soup. But,
it's like, I've never thought about it until the president gave me the idea.
Also, I feel like because it's mostly liquid, you could probably freeze it, and that would also make it very cold. That's not advice. That's just me thinking out loud.
It's just like Trump was doing. He was postulating
wildly wildly and irresponsibly on a place where a lot of people may hear it.
He just keeps going. He's just like, would it be murder? I don't know. I mean, it's a real legal question. I think somebody should bring it in front of a jury.
I mean, I could kill someone on Fifth Avenue, not murder.
Get away with it.
Yeah. Would that be murder? I don't know.
Would that apply to somebody else? You ask a lawyer, and their response to that is an unequivocal, I guess it depends.
This kid happened to be black, so absolutely it's murder.
No way.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's...
By the way, last week when we were talking about what's going on in Brooklyn Center there.
Yes.
You know, my mind immediately went to the eventual Supreme Court case that'll come from whether or not an officer is
can be confused
by the service weapon and the stun gun. And I did not mean that to be a lighthearted statement, because obviously that is the fucking biggest misconvenience. Like, you should not be able to make that kind of mistake if you're a 26-year veteran of the force. I just because a couple people told me about it, and they're just like, why do you think it's just going to end up in the Supreme Court? And I'm just like, well, because, you know, that's sort of how these things happen. Like, you know, you get a tough on the line call, and it's just like, well, it's awful, isn't it? I'm like, of course it's awful. That's why I said it's awful that this is going to end with an acquittal and then an eventual Supreme Court case where this issue comes up. Like, that's what upsets me so much is that there isn't a faster route to justice in a lot of these cases, because there's so much that goes into the nuts and bolts of it, you know? And that same thing is true here in the George Floyd case, because in the Derek Chauvin case, because, you know, it seems to almost anybody who it seems like a perfect hypothetical to raise to somebody.
Yeah.
Like,
I probably would have had this in a law school class.
Yeah.
And they will have this in the future.
The first year of law school is filled with, you know, the professor walking into the room and just being like, one guy has a gun, but it's holstered in his thing, and some other guy has a, you know, they come up with some hypothetical situation that would never happen, and it's just like, who's in the right, who's in the wrong? Like, what do you see happening? You know, like a police officer kneeling on somebody's neck for almost 9 minutes is the perfect example of something that you would bring up in a case like like a hypothetical.
And it's meant to say, oh, well, so the use of force was reasonable. Perhaps it was reasonable at the beginning, but there comes a time in which it's no longer reasonable, which is what the answer you want to get to. And everyone who's sitting at home is like, yeah, absolutely. But you weren't sitting in every minute of that trial. And the use of force expert that the defense called was convincing. And although I think the state did a good job of taking apart, you know, still.
Okay, so a good example of this, I just read a story earlier. Baltimore City cops were told, were given a seminar talking about how you intervene if somebody that you were policing with has stepped over the line. Like, what you do, what the proper thing is.
As a cop to another cop?
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So hypothetically, if there was some sort of George Floyd situation, one of the other cops there would have to get involved and say, hey, enough, and pull him off or something like that.
Was it reset and then turn your body cameras on and then discover the evidence and forget that it records 30 seconds
Walk
early?
away, say like, all right, we're going to get him real good, turn the body cam back on. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that a hit?
No.
Okay.
But that whole thing to me is just hysterical, because the problem is not... there's multiple problems here. Number one, the Baltimore Police Department cannot be trusted to intervene on their own behalf. They have proven this time and time again. Number two,
they quiet the rats. I mean, Sean
they,
Suiter, but you know, not the other way, not the good way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they just
they take care of their own.
I'm not gonna get too much into Suiter. We all know what happened there. He was murdered by the police. I don't know if you.
Everybody knows it. You just never be able to prove it.
it's the multiple layers of the impossible thing that has to take place in order for real justice to come forward. And I think that the riot that might happen if we get a not guilty is just indicative of the fact that nobody is happy that there's no easier way of convening justice in this sort of issue, especially when it involves somebody who's so legally protected like a police officer.
Yeah, less so. Thank you, Maryland, but less so and Maryland and other states. The difference with Maryland is they have a 90-day session, so we're already at Sine Die. Last day of the session. So they got to get it all done in the first 90 days.
Yeah.
And I know there's bills all over the place that will probably come to fruition, but Maryland rushes it through so they can get it done. But yes, less protections all across the country, probably as this year progresses. That'll be a good thing. My point to the riots happening because it's a good thing, or because he's found guilty, isn't that it'll be a riot. It's that anytime people go to the street, it feels like cops are like, all right, break out the tear gas, unless, they're invading the Capitol. And then we need to have some restraint here, boys. Let's just let this play out, see what happens. So
I don't get how people who storm the Capitol are angry about where things are going in their country, but people who are rioting in Minneapolis are not angry about where things are going. I mean, that's the entire purpose,
people
right?
Who are rioting in Southeast D.C. are not angry about things that are happening in their country, like cops killing kids. But people who are rioting 12 blocks away at the Capitol, listen, this is protected speech. They're just trying to change the country.
They're just really angry with where the country is going. And
seeking redress of grievances. Well, and I would say that it's a long-standing tradition, except for the country's been on the same path for a long time. And people may disagree with that, except for I would remind you that the Biden administration this week announced that they are going to wrap up a war that currently has people fighting in it that weren't alive when the event that precipitated it started the war.
Yeah.
And of course, Joe Biden announced that we are going to be pulling out of Afghanistan for the fourth time it's been announced, but now we really mean it. We're actually going to do it. And I suppose, again, as you pointed out, I'm going to use a metaphor, but you pointed this out, that it's going to be a pullout, but it's going to be a lot like that skeevy dude you knew from college pulls out. Like, not all the way, and, we're going to leave a little something behind, just so you remember.
I don't think I made this.
It's my metaphor to what you said. But, so it's... I
feel like I was misquoted.
We are going to leave Afghanistan, but there is 100% chance that there are still American troops in Afghanistan after the 11th of September. There will be a small number on bases. We'll keep our bases there because
why would we give up our base?
Yeah. We built a lot of bridges there. In fact, we've built the same bridge at least 30 times because every time we built it, the Taliban blew it up. And we said, you know what? Let's rebuild that bridge. And I'll remind everybody.
Stick it in their eye.
I'll remind everybody, transportation infrastructure in the United States has a D rating nationwide. We rebuilt the same bridge 30 times in Afghanistan. But that war is finally ending. And I was thinking about this earlier today. Dwight Eisenhower sent the first advisors into Vietnam in 1958. That war ended with Richard Nixon in 1975, which makes that slightly, 18 years?
Yeah.
So the people who were serving in Vietnam in 1975 were alive when Vietnam began, and that wasn't really even began because Kennedy is the first one that sent large numbers of troops over.
Right.
This war began in October of 2002. I remember because I was alive. I also remember because recruiters from every branch of the military were in my lunchroom at high school every single day saying, don't you want to go serve in Afghanistan? And show these guys what for. Thank God I didn't. But I think that we have been more accepting of a 20-year war. By the way, now the longest conflict in American history.
Yeah.
Longer than the Revolutionary War. 4 times longer than the Civil War. Longer than Vietnam. Longer than every war. Because medicine has caught up to the place where if I hit an IED and lost my arm in Vietnam, I died wherever I hit the IED.
Yeah.
And now I hit an IED in Islamabad's Pakistan.
Kandahar.
Outside of Kandahar. And 12 hours later, I'm in a hospital in Germany.
Yeah.
While they fit me for a prosthetic arm. And that means that there's less body count as far as deaths, but it means that there's a much higher body count as far as injuries and the mental effects. Because, by the way, also about 50 hours after that, I would be stateside. And about 4 months after that, I would be ushered out quietly from the armed services with my last check and a number for someone at the VA.
Yeah.
And that's it. I was killing people 5 months earlier in Afghanistan, not being able to sleep because I was worried about being mortared in the middle of the night. But 5 hours later, totally fine to just let me loose on an American street. Send me back to my wife and children.
Back to Toledo I go.
Back to West Baltimore, where nothing like Kandahar ever happens that might snap me into some sort of fugue state. But that's where we are. And, it's not a good thing. But during Vietnam, there was a higher likelihood that if you were injured, you died. And the memories of what you did and what you saw died with you there. The 58,000 people who died in Vietnam shouldn't have died there, and we shouldn't have fucking been there, frankly. But we didn't have to worry about as many people coming back with as many injuries, physical and mental.
Yeah.
Now we have an entire... And it's one thing to say you have a generation that's been impacted by it, but literally an entire generation of men, 20 years of men impacted by this. And that means 20 years of families. And when we're talking about intergenerational damage of a kid who graduated from high school with us, going over there, doing unimaginable things, then coming back. And by the way, we're old. That guy has a 10-year-old now.
Yeah.
And he's, 15-year-old now.
Yeah.
And so he's passing on that intergenerational emotional damage to his child. So we're just going to keep doing this for the next 25, 35 years.
I mean, really, we say the end of Afghanistan, but I imagine that all armed conflict from this point on, I mean, even in non-war times, there was people who were stationed overseas in military outposts based off of things that might happen, Oh,
we're still in Korea.
Yeah, we're still in Korea.
Oh, we have troops on both sides of Germany. Their gap, they used to separate East and West Germany. We now have both bases. Now they stare across the gap at each other because it's been 70 years, but I don't know if this war's over yet.
Zombie Hitler has arrived from the... No, I mean,
wait, are you trying to get into some COD? Because I'm down to talk about some COD zombies. I mean, you can jump into Verdansk right now if you want to. But I mean, essentially, it's... What is the guy in Bonn, Germany, going to do to the guy in Berlin, Germany? We're looking across the top of mountains at each other, across this valley.
But I mean, Afghanistan... A good number of the people, the heavy armed combat of Afghanistan has passed at this point.
Oh yeah, you remember Bush on the aircraft carrier?
Oh yeah, mission accomplished. Yeah, there wasn't.
That was only 2 years ago, 3
thank
years ago.
Thank God there wasn't a single death or anything like that since then.
Yeah,
not a single reason that.
It's been 2 or 3 years since they had that, right? Let's wait, no.
It's Trump, 2 or 3 presidential terms ago.
2 or 3, yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah. That was 6 elections ago. That's right. Yeah, okay.
There will be some form of troops in Afghanistan for probably the rest of our lives. And
who else is going to protect the poppy crop, man? We got to keep that heron.
Fucking Iraq is going to be the same way. When do we ever get to a place where Korea is a place where there's no U.S. troops in the DMZ?
If we invaded North Korea and we replaced the government with a democratic government, there would still be American troops on both sides of the old DMZ staring at each other across the border. What the fuck are we doing here? we got both sides now. What are we doing? But no. We got a base, and we're not going to give the base up. And most of the leases say that the base is ours until it's no longer occupied.
Right.
So instead of opening the base in Texas that supports a small town, we close that base and keep the one in Bonn, Germany.
It's like I learned in San Francisco, there's one Standard Oil gas station left because they have to have one operating in every state that they have gas stations in.
Yes.
It's like Sitco now has it or whatever.
Yeah, whoever owns
So,
it.
yeah. So it's just like, you're driving along, and then all of a sudden in San Francisco, you're like, Standard Oil.
34 cents a gallon. But you do have to get out to that old timey thing and actually pump it up into the glass globe. And
The
then
guy
down into
comes,
your glass.
morning, Mr. Jefferson.
Everything's in black and white. It's very weird.
Pleasantville all of a sudden.
Yeah, but jokes aside, there's a lot of like sentiment of get back to normal, and I am of the mindset that this could be a lot of shoving stuff under the rug.
Yeah.
Because like get back to normal, like, oh, we'll get back to where we were before we went to war in Afghanistan. But wait, we still have the NDAA. We still have spying on people here in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Patriot Act, yeah.
Patriot Act. We have Guantanamo, still not closed. Still at war in Iraq. Infrastructure still failing. Guns, still a problem in the United States because we're back to normal in that, at least, where 50 mass shootings have happened in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
And although
and this past week is just one day right after the other. Like,
and it's so weird because if you look at the year over year, 2020 paced every year before it. And I was just like, how is this possible? And it looks like there was a couple really violent days a lot of really violent days in 2020. But like there were sections when the whole city was shut down. Like what was happening? Like how did this happen? But now we're back on pace, which is instead of like 50 shootings in 40 days spread across the whole year, we're just getting one and a half every day. And now back on a nice normal pace of 50 and 30 days. And listen, mass shootings are any more than 3 people. So you get a triple homicide where some other person is shot, whether or not they're killed, that's a mass shooting.
yeah.
And whether or not you agree with that, it is what it is. Like, I agree with it because then I hear like, oh, well, there were 3 people shot in a McDonald's drive-thru with 1 death, a 3-year-old girl. And what?
Yeah.
Wait, by the way, we're back to normal. We're leaving Afghanistan. Great. Could we do a little nation building in the United States? Could I go to McDonald's with a kid in the car and not leave with a murder victim? That would be great. And we talk about it a lot, and I don't want to rehash the old stuff, but just like, come the fuck on. Like, there's nothing we can do, says the only country in the world where this happens on a regular basis.
Thank
Thoughts
you, The
and
Onion.
prayers.
Yeah.
There is no moderate gun group. We talked about this in the pre-show. Like the NRA is an extremist group, and I get that. I get why. When there's no moderate group, you have to be the ones. There is a whole bunch of, you said this, a whole bunch of animal rights groups, and there are some that are very extreme and some that are very moderate.
Yeah.
But when you only have one, it's always going to be the extremist.
When it was just PETA, when
they
PETA
were
was the
crazy.
only one, they were breaking into labs. They were lighting shit on fire.
Eco-terrorists.
Yeah. And, there was I'm not saying that I can't see how somebody would want to defend animals so badly that they would commit crimes like this, or that, like something is in the wrong or the right, or that's for, juries to decide. But like, we have to do this with, there has to be a way to do that without violence. There has to be a animal rights group that doesn't, and then eventually other ones come up. The SPCA is like a non-violence, like completely normal animal rights group.
What happened was a bunch of people who supported PETA and then was like, so listen, I'm down for the animals, but that's too far. I'm not willing to support that. Let's start our own group where we believe the same things, but without the blowing up a lab.
Well, also you had like really spotty leadership in PETA originally, where it's just like, it was just like, is it wrong for us to blow up a building that has 1,000 people in it if we save 2 apes?
No.
And the leaders are just like, of course not. And
there's
like,
a lot more people than there are apes, all right?
Meanwhile, normal, everyday Americans who are hearing this are going like, what the fuck is this crazy bitch talking about?
And right now, there are people saying background checks make sense. We need a federal law so that I can't drive to Nevada and buy a gun today and turn around and come home and shoot somebody here in LA tonight.
Yeah.
Federal law would make that standardized. I don't see why that's a problem. But they don't see that there's no group that is... Now, there are. Socialist gun clubs, the John Brown gun clubs. These are all places that do that. But, you know, you can't throw socialist into it because then people are like, well, I'm not going to join that, even though they don't understand what socialism is. And the NRA, being the big national gun group, takes that extremist view where they're like, not 1 inch. We saw the cigarette companies. We know what happens when you give a little bit. Next thing you know, I can't smoke in my own apartment in Los Angeles, which is really a thing that some places can enforce.
Yeah.
So instead, what we say is not 1 inch. And
not even apartment. Place you own.
Place you own.
Yeah.
Yes, a house that you own.
A house
in
you
some
own.
cities. But we see that, and we're not going to start down that road. And that makes you look crazy. But without the moderate group, that's your only option.
I'm honestly, and it really pains me to think that this is our only solution at this point, but we need to get insurance involved in this, because if you guys want to listen, I'm not going to step in the way of people owning guns, because there's nothing I can do to stop any number of people from owning guns.
People who don't live in your apartment.
People who don't live under my house.
Yes.
Under my roof.
Mentally unstable people who live in your apartment.
I'm
yes.
getting a look right now too from producer Roberto. He's not amazed.
Well, listen, I mean, especially people who don't live, 6 blocks from a gun club where they could keep the gun and shoot the gun regularly for a low monthly rate.
We're gonna lose our producer here if we keep doing this. My point being that, I would feel a lot better about this whole thing if knowing that if you purchased a gun and you went and shot up a bunch of people, then at some point there would be a lawsuit on the other end about the loss of life and the, if it was somebody's unsecured weapon that their child got and then went and shot a bunch of people, then the person who didn't secure the weapon properly can be sued.
And they have insurance to pay for it, so it's not just an empty bucket.
And there's a chance you can't get insured. Like
you go.
if for instance you have 15 domestic assault arrests on your record,
not going to be good.
Yeah,
not going to be good for insurance.
You could buy the gun, you can get the insurance. Just letting you know ahead of time, though, it's $30,000 a month. So how badly do you want that gun?
Yeah. I bought 70 guns last year. They were all stolen. This is not my fault. All right. So
yeah, or the straw trade of I'm going to buy a bunch of guns in North Carolina and bring them up to Baltimore and just sell them on the street because technically legal and
well, no paperwork equals your insurance is the last thing we have on record.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah.
You're responsible.
I mean, never in the world have I thought insurance would make things better, but that might be the only thing that makes any kind of quick resolution to the issue.
You're making the argument I was thinking about earlier. I don't like prosecutors.
Yeah.
And this Derek Chauvin case is putting me in a position of being can both sides lose? Is there a way that we can have this guy go to jail for the rest of his life and also the state loses the case? Because I don't want the state to win.
Yeah.
And you've put me in the place where I'm cheering for a prosecutor and I don't like it. And this gun debate is I fucking hate insurance companies. You're putting me in the place where I'm asking for insurance. Yeah. Are you kidding me right now?
Well, just because we can't come up with reasonable, the worst part is I feel like you talk to any number of people and they'll agree with reasonable gun control, right? Universal background checks and making sure that it's registered and,
federal laws.
Federal law.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a video I saw where you can get you can buy the gun in Nevada without just same day, just buy the gun, walk out the store with it.
Yeah.
You can get the concealed carry permit online for Florida without ever leaving Nevada because the whole process can take place
or Texas.
Online.
Texas also offers the concealed carry online.
Okay, so one of those 2 states, but then immediately as soon as you have it, it protects you.
40 states.
And 39 states for concealed carry. You don't have to fucking leave.
By the way, you know what one of those states is?
Yeah.
Nevada.
Yeah.
So I'm living in Nevada and I apply for concealed carry in Texas and then it applies in Nevada.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have a good what kind of we live in a world the whole reason for the gay marriage debates at the beginning was because some states were allowing it and then some states weren't recognizing it. That's really the the crux of it, because it was Vermont for the longest time was like the only state you could get gay marriage. Like,
well, no, because they said their state court found it unconstitutional to put a gender in the law.
Yeah.
So it was like a roundabout, like, well, we don't say gay marriage is legal. We just say you can't have a gender.
Because there was a while there, I remember gay couples talking about like, oh, I'm making the trip up to Vermont this year to get married.
Yep.
But like states across the country were just like, we're not recognizing your stupid Vermont marriage license. It's like, well, you recognize the straight couples, so how are you making an argument about something that was legally obtained? And
I passed the bar in a state. I cannot practice in every state of the country because it would be irresponsible for that state to allow me to practice law without taking their bar. Yet I can own and conceal a gun. That's fine. No, it's cool. Yeah, you're good.
You can practice in like a handful of states though, right?
Yeah, there's a couple I could still practice.
It's like you could practice with the Maryland bar. You could practice in like Massachusetts and New York or something like that.
Not New York. There's like 4 states, and also I have to apply there, and I can't be retired, which is what my.
It's like a general waiver though that you like.
Yeah, I get waived in. Like basically, I apply, and they're like, "Oh, you're good on the bar there. All right, you're fine." But because I'm retired, I would have to go reactivate in Maryland and then apply.
Yeah.
And then also pay Maryland bar fees because while I'm active in another state, I have to be active in my state.
Yeah.
So it's not worth it because obviously I don't care. I don't want to practice law.
But if you were one of those people who wanted to practice across a couple states, like that
and
one.
Also, California ain't one of them. So even if I did that, I couldn't practice in California. Also couldn't practice in Nevada for the purposes of this example.
Yeah.
And couldn't practice in Texas or Florida. But yet...
You can buy the gun and legally conceal it. Yeah.
Well, because it would be irresponsible for me to practice law. But listen, don't you impede on my Second Amendment right. That was a joke. That was a joke. Yeah. Listen, this is the thing I don't think gun advocates understand. Every amendment has limitations. You have the right to free speech. You cannot shout fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah. You
have the right to assemble.
Also, some of your free speech rights are drastically going away real quick. So I don't know if you've seen the anti-riot language in Florida and stuff like that.
I was going to say, you can get together to seek redress of grievances. However, if you touch a fence outside of a police station in Minneapolis, you will get tear gassed. That is how that works. There are limitations on rights. One of those is you have the right to keep and bear arms. However, if you are a mentally deranged person or your roommate does not agree, another person who pays rent at the place where you live, you cannot keep it there. That is part of the limitations on your rights. So before we do lose a producer, let's jump into a very quick lightning round of some stuff that we think you should hear about because it may come up later or follow up on some stories from previous weeks. First up, Peloton versus children, which is a weird way to put it, but Peloton doesn't care.
That'll be what the class action lawsuit is.
Yes. Peloton doesn't care that your kids are dying, which isn't true. It's not that they don't care. It's just not enough kids for them to care right now, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. So if you have a Peloton treadmill, apparently there is a auto start feature or a it still moves while it's off feature. And 40 kids have been injured or killed because they've been dragged under the treadmill and then crushed. And apparently Peloton's response to that was essentially, not verbatim, but essentially, parents should watch their kids better, which I agree with.
Yeah.
However,
I mean, when my dad bought the Nordic track back in the day,
wait, was it that one or was it the Gazelle, the guy with the Gazelle?
No, it was the one that had the
Nordic
track? On the tracks, like the little and then you'd put on the TV the guy like cross country skiing, and then you find yourself in the moment where you're now.
I'm cross country skiing, but I'm not cold.
Look at me, I'm in Colorado and Maryland at the same time.
Yeah.
No, but like once it was delivered and assembled and everything like that, I remember there was a moment where he looked at me and he said, "If you break this, I break you." and I knew, don't fucking touch that machine. Because I'm sure it costs as much as like a
small car.
Yeah, a small car.
Yeah. I would just like to also point out April is Child Abuse Awareness Month, and what we want to do is to end the circle of child abuse where we didn't recognize it as abuse, but it probably was. And sometimes those the dad grabbing you in a store and just like, wait till we get home. I cannot fathom doing that to a child of my own. However, I have also not dealt with a little version of me.
Yeah, see, you say that, and then you realize, like, not only that, but I'm all full of ADHD, so sometimes you have to be, like, direct. You have to just be like, listen, this is literally 0%. Like, do not fuck with this thing.
Yeah,
like,
my sister. God
don't
bless
go
her.
up and just move it a little bit. Like, this is a do not, under any circumstances, touch this thing.
My sister, God bless her, is dealing with a little me. And I feel terrible for her because she has dedicated herself to, like, I will not spank. I try not to raise my voice. We focus on calming and self-soothing. And I am just picturing my mother dealing with me.
Yeah.
With that kind of stuff. And God bless, I mean, yes, that's absolutely what you should do. And she is in the right. But if she told me, like, she has not told me this and would not tell me this, this is something I am making up in my own
hypothetical.
Head. If a person like her told me that what happened was, we were self-soothing and he was like, shut up, bitch. And then I backhanded him across the room, which is something I said to my mother when I was like 9 years old. She didn't backhand me. She calmly left the room.
Yeah.
I would have smacked the shit out of little me. I would not blame her, this hypothetical person, because little me's a dick. And this kid is smarter.
Big U's a dick sometimes, too.
Absolutely a dick. But this kid is smarter and cuter and, like, the worst. And he's an only child. So it's just, like, all the attention.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That poor woman. Jesus Christ. She needs a vacation. Anyway, so watch your Pelotons, because Peloton's not going to do anything until somebody gets sued. And I don't know if you've seen Fight Club, but the basic rule is how many people will be injured, how much is the out-of-court settlement, and that X, A times B equals X. And if X is less than the cost of a recall or a change, they won't do one. So they've already basically said, fuck you and your kids. We're not going to do it.
There will be a screen that will automatically pop up on your Peloton during the next software update that says, "Please keep your children away from Peloton. You have been warned." Much like any time I go to my car. I've owned it for, over a year now.
Yeah.
I've turned it on hundreds of times. Every single time it's like, be careful. Make sure that you make sure that you pay attention to the backup camera and don't just influence your decision. I'm like, whatever. I don't even know what the whole thing, the warning is. I just dismiss it every time.
With the Peloton, they're going to get one that's like, hit OK if you agree to waive all liability to Peloton. Get me to my workout, and that's it.
I need Jessica to tell me I'm a fat bitch today.
So, second story you should know about, we brought it up a couple weeks ago, or I brought it up a couple weeks ago because I care about Mars. Helicopter on Mars was dropped off, and this is how things work on Mars. There's an 18-hour round trip or a 6-hour round trip for signals, but the bitch flew, so we know that it works. It only took off and landed. It was a short flight, but good news, so it flew.
I always like how NASA, I was thinking about this earlier, like technology companies, like, which is effectively what I feel like NASA should be, viewed as like a very expensive technology company.
Sure, yeah. A very cheap technology company, by the way. What they're doing on Mars, Elon Musk wants you to pay 10 times as much for and get less results.
Oh, well, yes. I'm not saying that it should be like a capitalist system. I'm just saying that, regardless, we've had NASA before.
Also, with NASA, no apartheid on Mars. Just saying. Not that Elon Musk wants to do that, but he might. I don't know.
The what's great about NASA is that they'll just stick to the little steps now. They're just like, we got the volume rocker working. Like, it's just like, oh, big day for NASA. We got the volume rocker working. Rather than the like, what they used to do was like here's our big show. We've been working on it for months. Here's the thing that will determine whether or not the air is colder in space. And then like, I'm just like, isn't it? And then they launch the rocket up and then it explodes. And they're like, that costs $800 billion. And then everyone's like, why? And then now they're just like, it's like the kid who like does little, he's just like,
look what I can do.
Look at this. I learned this one. It's just like, oh, good. You get McDonald's tonight for dinner.
Never use food as rewards. That's what I love as a kid. I just love that you equated moving a volume rocker with flying a helicopter on a foreign planet.
Yeah.
The first step in adding a planet to your birth certificate.
All I'm saying is that there was a time and place where NASA was responsible for an Apple Maps-like disaster every 2 to 3 months on the regular.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, why can't they get their shit in order? Like, I think we should add the fucking Vegas to LA Amtrak to this lightning round, because we've had that same conversation for fucking ever too. Like,
nothing's been. We know it's gonna come. You are waxing hypothetical about how it's gonna take 19 hours and cost 10 times as much, and we don't know anything yet. One stop in Victorville, which, by the way, the odds that it takes you 19 hours because your spouse says, let's get off at Victorville for a quick drink, and then the next day you end up in Vegas, high. The odds I make it to Vegas in 2 hours, also very high.
I don't believe it. I just can't. Like, it'd be like back in the, like, Chrysler was just like, all right, new brand of cars that don't explode. And you're just like, but I'll believe it when I see it. Don't you dare. Hey, it's a new deuce and a quarter that actually works. Nah, I'm gonna believe that shit when I see it.
You are my dad 3 years ago when I'm like, you should try a Hyundai. The Elantra's really nice. And he's like, Hyundai? Piece of crap cars. And I'm like, Dad, 20 years ago, yes.
Yeah.
First of all, you're not supposed to use those kind of words to describe people from there. Not okay anymore. Also, you should try it. You're going to find it. It's going to be nice. And then he bought one. And here's the thing. You were talking shit about Amtrak. We're going to be on the train to Vegas. You're going to see the ETA on your ticket. You're going to be like, what, tomorrow? Nah, well, I guess we'll see. Then we'll be getting off the train ahead of time. And you'd be like, well, I mean, they got that one train right, but I guess we'll see.
We're going to find out, because it's just how it works. I don't know what to tell you. Amtrak is just a flawed organization from go, and there's nothing that I don't trust them to be able to fix it. Like, I just don't. Like, it'd be like you come to me tomorrow and you're just like, oh, by the way, Comcast is great now, and I'm just like, no, I don't believe that for a second. How in the world? How in the world
doesn't exist anymore?
How in the world
is amazing.
How in the world? It's just like, oh, you know who all really figured it out? AT&T. I'm just like, no.
So here's the thing. We could wait for the Hyperloop to get us from LA to Vegas, but then, the apartheid on the Hyperloop. Yeah. So at least this way, there's no apartheid.
Right.
Also an Elon Musk project. So, apartheid. Listen, do some research. That's how he got all his money. Apartheid.
Let's do this mega drought real quick.
So you're gonna hear the not a keyword,
term,
buzzwords of mega drought all summer. Don't believe it. Yes, we are in a bit of a drought, but in
California, yeah,
in the West in general.
Yeah.
But also, we are doing way better now than we were when we moved to LA 4 years ago, and way better than we were doing a decade ago in California. And yet they're still calling it mega drought for reasons that only make sense if you know that the summer that they were talking about shark attacks, there were average number of shark attacks.
Yeah.
But nothing else was happening, so we made it about shark attacks. And it's not like they're going to talk about cops killing kids, because also that has been happening every single fucking year forever, and we never talk about it. So, mega drought.
Something else to keep on. There's a huge storm that is just off the coast. Like, apparently it might hit Northern California. And it's like supposed to be a really bad storm, like a tsunami. Right. So it's just fun to. So
it's not funny.
It's not funny, but it's interesting to watch these people who are just like hoping for the rain, hoping for the moisture that it brings, but don't want the damage that would come with it. Yes. It's just like, man, I really hope this hurricane hits us and doesn't break anything. It's like,
we could really use the rain, but if the winds could just calm down, it would be great.
Yeah. If the winds could not cause any property damage, that'd be great, but we really need the rain.
and it's the waffling that you see on it's local. I'm guaranteeing most of these clips are local weather, where it's just like, so we should all be very careful, but keep in mind we are 9 inches down on the year at this point, so it would be fantastic if we could get 19 inches of rain in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like somebody in New Orleans who'd be like, listen, this Katrina situation could be very bad, but also
we need some rain.
We do need some rain. It's
been dry around here. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, and at this point, I also would say mega drought is a little bit of people in California, Idaho, Nevada being like, hey, dummy, don't throw your cigarette out in a state park or else you might burn it down. Like the whole park might burn down.
Yeah.
And they need buzzwords like that because people are stupid. Speaking of people are stupid, I guess not. So people are overreacting, perhaps, or cautiously reacting.
I think once you get one shot, you feel like you're a little bit more invincible than you were the moment before you got it.
And that's dumb.
No, I get it. I think, but I think there's some human nature to that too, that is kind of like taking over a lot of.
Good news this week: 25% of the we've reached 25% of vaccination, fully vaccinated, and just shy of 50% have had one shot.
Yeah, I think it was like 48.7% or something like that.
A concerning statistic in there is that between 5 and 10% of people missed the second appointment. So they got their first shot and then missed the second one. And however they break this number down, they don't believe it is because people got nervous about getting a second one, or there is a small number of people who had such bad symptoms from the first one that they didn't get the second one. What it seems to be is just people are like, oh, I got one, I'm good. And that's dumb.
Like somebody I know who was claiming they were immune. Like,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. And no matter how terrible the circumstances of your birth and the place you were raised, you are not immune. Just because we played in a Discovery Zone ball pit does not make us immune from COVID, although it is as close as you possibly could be. But no, so it's good that we're getting a lot of people vaccinated. It's not so good that people aren't returning. It's also not so good that every bar on Sunset Boulevard is open with crowds outside the door smoking. Because here's the thing. I am sure they're enforcing some sort of rule inside about separation. What they're not doing is saying, hey, when you guys step outside to smoke, make sure you stand 6 feet apart because they're just crowding up outside the doors. That's not great.
No, I'm really hoping that Newsom has come up with his plan of reopening by June. I think that we are just... I think that everyone is just optimistically sort of saying like, oh, we're ramping up till June. Like it's just going to be like we get a little bit more, things get better and better. And then all of a sudden June, just like do whatever you want. Like you're 100% stadium ballparks or stadium attendance. And,
their places are already doing that.
Yeah.
Orioles are going to play in Arlington.
Yeah.
It's a full ballpark there. So
not nary a mask in sight. It's such a weird time because I feel like this is us being able to like sort of test different theories that people didn't do a year ago. Like I think there's a part of Texas that wanted to just like be completely open and just say fuck it, but they didn't do it a year ago and now they're doing it. And on a smaller scale, hopefully a not as calamitous scale, we're going to see what happens from that, I
am hoping for the same thing. Well, I'm hoping for something similar, which is in the race from herd immunity to 95% death rate variant, that the 95% death rate variant wins. That's what I am hoping for. And I would like to say a big thank you to the governor of Texas, because you, my friend, are helping me hedge my bet. If there is a way that we are going to get the variant that kills off 95% of the human race, it is going to be because of people like you. So I appreciate that. But in other areas of, I don't want to say overreaction on this either, but cautious reaction. This week, the federal government said that they were going to pause on vaccines with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, much as they had paused on the AstraZeneca vaccine previously, which is now available again. Because in 160 cases that were inside of a study, 6 women developed a blood clotting disorder or a condition.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that's not known about it, and I don't want to make super light of it, but I will say that it's a small study which is not statistically applicable to the entire group of people who got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Yeah.
I do support the tweet that said you should make this just for men and say, I'm strong enough to stick this Johnson in me. I think that is a good ad campaign, and it will make people ask important questions.
Yeah, clip that one, by the way, Roberto.
That would require him to be a producer. I think we know that that's not really what his job is.
I am glad that Johnson and Johnson, or that they've basically pulled it while they figure out exactly what's going on here. It's an actual specific condition. It's not just sort of like you get the shot and then all of a sudden you get a blood clot.
Clots, yeah.
It's because of something specific that seems to be reacting to, and who hasn't watched a pharmaceutical commercial at some point where they say side effects may include
10 things that are worse than the condition it's curing.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I think it was the responsible thing to do to pull it.
Mm-hmm.
But the longer it goes, the longer people are going to have the conversation of, am I going to get this vaccine? Like people will become hesitant if it goes on too long. So it's important that we get to the bottom of it, but it might be certain people with certain conditions are suggested not to get it. One of the symptoms that I heard a doctor speaking of in regards to, if you think you might, if all of a sudden you've gotten the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and you think that something is wrong, that a headache that is so severe that you feel like you need medical attention is like one of the signs that you might be clotting, which is a good variation from my leg hurts a little bit. Yeah. Which could be you slept on it weird, or something like,
or you're over 30. Because by the way, that's just basically every morning for me. Like,
I mean,
it's then I can take the knee.
It's better that you figure it out and you get it taken care of, and then you can re-release it to people who hopefully won't have that side effect. Yeah. Than it is to have this happen to 500 people and then all of a sudden nobody trusts the vaccine anymore.
Absolutely. I don't know why, but I was just thinking about back when we were in college, there was a weight loss drug that was like, if you take this drug, you might lose up to 40 pounds. Yeah. Side effects were oily, greasy anal leakage. And I was like, is it worth losing 40 pounds if you shit your pants regularly while you take the drug? I don't know why I just thought about that, but I was like, that's my prime example of like, are the side effects worth what you're going to get? Yeah. And here's another one. Listen, there are 4 vaccines available, now 3. If one has side effects of possible blood clots, great, let's take it off. It wasn't even counted in the extrapolation to get to the 100 million and the 200 million and the fully vaccinated. It was basically a bonus. AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson were both a bonus to get to that number. So great. So we don't necessarily need it to get to that number. And I think you're right that as we look to vaccinate the world, 7 billion people, having them say, oh no, they figured out what that was. And if you have this condition or are susceptible to this condition, then don't take it. Then great. If I don't have that, I can move on and I can take it. Let's do that. I'm fine with that. I would just like to say, because my sister got the J&J vaccine. Yeah. I called her and I said, listen, I read the study. Just so you know, somebody who is more knowledgeable than average, I suppose, read it. It was a small sample. It was a small number of people. It seems as though it brought out an illness or a condition that was already there. Yeah. If you compare that study to women in general, birth control has about the same rate of blood clotting risk. So, for those of you like producer Roberto who force their women to get on birth control so they can get an extra 2 pumps, make that best 20 seconds of her life into the best 40 seconds of her life, then I think that if you're willing to take that risk, then you should be willing to take the risk of the vaccine, if that's the only one available. But it's not. There are other options available, so embrace that option instead. And I think we'll keep the security in vaccines in general, so that when we go to vaccine other places or other generations, kids are doing the testing on kids now. So small sample testing on children. We're going to need the trust of parents to give it out to them. It's a good idea that we put security over like experimentation. I just wish they had done more of like, okay, so small sample, cautiousness, because of caution, we're going to do this. But if you got it, probably not a reason to worry. My sister heard nothing. Yeah. She heard blood clots and she was like, oh, fuck. All right. So I guess I should be stressed about this. Then I read the story, the same one you did, about like, if you get a severe headache, that's something to be worried about. Like
Yeah.
foot cramps, and you always get foot cramps. Probably not a problem.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the worry. Like, you know, like I'll wake up with like a stuffy nose. Like I feel like weird. Like when I wake up or like when I go to the go to the COVID testing and they're just like, have you had a stuffy nose in the past week? And I'm just like, I mean, yes, but really no. I mean, like, I know what you're asking for.
I'm 40. All right. I wake up with back pain and knee pain and stuffy every day.
Yeah.
I'm on a regular regimen of antihistamine that I spray into my nose every single day so that I can breathe, because otherwise it's bad. But you mean other than that? No. It's like your example of they asked if I was allergic to anything. They ask for anything that they put in your body. Are you allergic to anything? And sometimes I'm like, well, cats, but I'm guessing there's nothing in cats in that. But then you're just like, should I tell them cats? Because I don't want to fuck up.
I'm sure the line of the vaccine in LA was hilarious. Do you have any allergies or anything we need to know about? Oregano. Please don't put any oregano in my I'm definitely allergic to parsley.
So I have an allergy to something called gadolinium, which is a contrast agent for MRIs. I have to tell them that because there are 7 different contrast agents they can use.
Yeah.
The most common one is the one I'm allergic to. So if I don't tell them, what happens is they give me the contrast agent. I lay down. They put the little cage around my face. And immediately I say, get me out of here. They unpin it. And then I throw up on the person who was just so nice as to give me the MRI. After that happens one time, now I'm like, if I'm getting an MRI, allergic to gadolinium. I see that. Then you got a needle there with. I'm gonna guess that's gadolinium. Don't give that to me, or I will throw up on you. But I'll be fine afterwards. I'll just throw up, and then you'll be covered in throw up, and I will feel terrible. But that's it. So when I'm in line for a vaccine or at a usual doctor's office, I'm just like, I don't feel the need to tell you that. I also don't feel the need to tell people I'm allergic to cats, even though I am deathly allergic to cats. But I do feel the need to tell that to a girl who I'm meeting on a dating website because I don't see any cats in your profile. But let's just be clear. If you got 9 cats at your house,
can't come over.
It's going to be a fucking problem. I can't come there. You can't come here. It's going to be bad.
By the way, the comments overrun by Misty Wisty, who's concerned about a monster that is under her bed.
Yes.
I don't know what to tell you. I thought that was all a fairy tale, and now I'm learning here in the YouTube comment section the bastion of truth and honesty in the internet from somebody named Misty Wisty. I'm sure a legal name. That the monster needs to get out.
Well, I was just going to say, whatever concern you have for what is under your bed, the fact of the matter is Roberto's here producing the show. So
it's not him.
Whatever is there can't be worse. That's all I'm saying. It can't be worse. There's nothing to be scared of. I'm sure that you're going to be fine.
I mean...
Or wait, what's the Rihanna song? Is it Monster Under My Bed?
I think it's just The Monster.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one with Eminem?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what you do. You play that song, but only Eminem's fire-ass fucking second verse on that song, because it's good. And Nicki Minaj is on that song too, I think, right? No, that's a different monster song with Jay-Z and Lil Wayne. Both very good songs about monsters. I think you should check both of those out. Available on Spotify.
Oh, congratulations. You got to the end of your 15-second skip. You know what? You know what's coming now? OhTheAnthem.com. CoreyOhTheAnthem.com. Oh, the Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. You can find me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/Corey Baker Film, at LegendCB5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
And on YouTube.
And on YouTube, because there was a new video this week. So, hooray. Go check out that video. And another one is in the plans for this week. So, you know, I realized I shouldn't have said keep an eye out for Thursday and then be it the first time that I export a 4K video, because it took a lot longer than I thought it would. But in the end, it all worked out. It's up there to be enjoyed. So
I'll just remind you, 8,100 minutes of content last year.
Yeah.
Exhausting. Like, you're literally just editing and exporting every minute of every day.
Yeah.
Fucking ridiculous. But that's what happens when you set things like New
Weekly
video
goal,
every
yeah.
Tuesday and Sunday because you're a fucking dumbass. And you're like, why not? That shit seems like it's easy enough. And then when you're in the middle of that, you're like, why don't I do a daily podcast? That sounds like something I should do. My mental health is completely under wraps.
Prepared
Not
for
gonna be a
this,
problem. Yeah. Anyway, so you can find more of me at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networks. You check out my website, robertncheek.com. I have not put up any new videos, despite promising to, because end of season 2 for Call of Duty. So triple double weekend, didn't have any time to edit. Also, the nuke event's coming this week, so probably not going to be this week either. But once we roll into season 3, it'll take me about 4 days to lock down Prestige Master, and then I'll have some free time, and I can. Yes, that's right, Roberto. 200 levels in 4 days, that would not be abnormal for me. So once I get that locked down, then I'll have plenty of time to edit and get a video up. Bunch of fun stuff, reviews of products and updates on products. And what's going to be very important for you guys to keep in mind is Roberto's self-esteem is 100% wrapped up in the fact that the videos he shot for me become very more popular than the ones that I shot when I said, fuck it, I'll turn the camera on and record this, and did so. And then it subsequently became the most popular video on my channel with a rocket. So what he's going to need you to do is to check out those videos and like and comment so they become way more popular. So that he is
Vindicated? Yeah.
In his argument. And speaking of Roberto, of course, you can find him at RTOAZN on all your social media networks. And by find him, I mean he has an account.
To be followed.
It is able to be followed.
Yeah.
There is a TikTok with something on it. No TikTok? Oh, there's a TikTok. It's got stuff to be followed. There's an Instagram that is updated occasionally. A Facebook, Twitter.
I think the last tweet on Twitter was I got pushed into making this tweet.
And if you send him a DM on any of those, it will take him days to respond. Literally a man who has a phone in his hand every time that I see him, and yet takes hours to respond to messages. But I'm sure he'll respond to yours because, especially if, if you're an Instagram model.
Hold on.
Well, sorry, yeah.
I'm going to say, I don't want to make it seem like he's slacking off here. If people reach out to him on an email for an acting job, for which he is incredibly talented, it's an immediate response. It's I got to set up for this audition. He's very professional when it comes to that, just not the promoting himself on the Twitter or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost as if, directors and casting agents don't look at the number of followers on social media. But follow him, and if you have, can I give out your acting email? Is that a thing? Can I do? Yeah. So if you have a project, if you would like to collaborate with him on collaborating on a collaborative project, then reach out at ArizonActing, ARRIZONACTING @gmail.com, and that's where you can reach him for all his professional projects. But don't have him produce your podcast, because in the end, you'll produce the whole thing, then he'll screw it up 2 minutes before you start, and have to fix the whole thing at the end.
And then get upset when you talk about guns during the show.
Unless you have an NRA pro-gun podcast, then
that's
clearly your guy. That's the guy you want.
Clearly, I mean,
I think you'd be surprised. I think you'd be very surprised.
Well, I think we done dude here today.
Wait, did you say pedophiles or guns? We've done something. I don't know if it's good.
Oh, God.
But as always, you're listening to the OD Anthem
Just
podcast.
right at the end, the fucking QAnoners is
Part
coming.
of the OD Anthem Digital Network. Secret part of the QAnon organization. For Corey and Roberto, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody. I said I'm going to say one controversial thing every single week. I just realized.
Why did it have to be that one? I thought it was
fine. There's pedophiles and Epstein in Hollywood, and it's a big cabal of people that are drinking blood and adrenochrome, and it's all obviously true.
I'm not included in this.
Well, that's because you're not popular enough. I'm sorry. I don't know. Yeah, you're not cool. It's a cool kids club. I'm a member since 1984.